It has been nearly a month since a Utah Highway Patrol trooper fell more than 30 feet off a freeway overpass during a multi-agency pursuit. Tonight we hear from that trooper for the first time in a story you'll only see on Fox 13 News.
Our next strong storm arrives tomorrow, where we'll see rain, snow, and damaging winds.
Why would somebody want to do something bad to him? Why would somebody want to hurt him?
A childhood friend of two men missing in southern Utah is in disbelief tonight as their disappearance is now a homicide investigation. Why law enforcement is taking the case in this direction.
And tonight, a life-saving tool could be hard to come by in one Utah community. Why supplies of Narcan may not meet demand in Iron County.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman.
And I'm Bob Evans. It has been almost 1 month since a Utah Highway Patrol trooper fell off a freeway overpass while deploying spike strips during a police chase.
He has been in the hospital ever since, but tonight we've learned that trooper has been moved to a rehabilitation facility. And to say it's a miracle he's alive would be a massive understatement.
Today, he spoke exclusively with Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold about what led up to the accident and his long road to recovery.
Doing like an enforcement down on North Temple with Salt Lake City and some other agencies involved.
February 13th started as a typical day at work for Utah Highway Patrol trooper Steve Meyer, until things changed quickly.
We had a pursuit from one of our, I think it was an unmarked car that actually started on, and the helicopter was able to pick up the vehicle and follow it.
Trooper Meyer, a UHP motor officer with 38 years of law enforcement experience, ended up here on an overpass at 7200 West near I-80. He says he went to deploy spike strips to stop the SUV that was fleeing from police.
So he swerved to avoid him. And I didn't know, because once I went behind my truck, I couldn't see him, but I didn't want to get hit by his car.
Moments later, Trooper Meyer says,
I knew there was a barrier there for protection. So when I took the big step back, that's the last thing I pretty much remember.
He told Fox 13 News on Monday he thinks he hit that barrier with his foot and it just tipped him over backwards, causing him to fall more than 30 feet.
Next thing I remember is being in bag, some type of a bag that I guess it come from our helicopter pilots, and our TFO officer put me in the bag, and I remember the bag fluttering. The next thing that I actually remember is either going in or coming out of OR, the operating room.
Trooper Meyer says many of the injuries he sustained were to the left side of his body.
The big thing is I guess my heart went through the pericardium sac that it sets in. It tore through that, and it ended up under my armpit. Next thing is kind of down to my pelvis. It's basically shattered.
After spending weeks in the hospital, Trooper Meyer was moved to a rehab facility in Murray. While he currently can't walk due to his injuries, he is thankful.
The pilot and the TFO officer that decided to turn and help me come back and help me from the DPS helicopter is the one that picked me up and brought me to IHC. They saved my life.
Miracle after miracle that Trooper Meyer says is the reason he is able to be here today.
I need to watch my grandbabies grow up and do their thing. And my children, my family is most important.
Well, as Trooper Meyer continues his recovery, he did tell me that he would like to return to work at some point, telling me that he's a motor officer and that riding motorcycles is his life, whether it's on duty or off duty, and that he would like to get back to that. In Murray, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Wow, what a story.
What a survivor.
My goodness gracious. Well, the suspect, 34-year-old Sammy Michael Swickey, who led authorities on that chase through multiple cities, remains behind bars tonight.
He's facing several charges, including drug possession, failing to stop for officers, and driving on a denied license.
Now to our other top story. After weeks of wondering where two Blanding men could be, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office says their disappearance has turned into a homicide investigation.
Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser spoke to the wife of one of the men and one of their childhood friends who cannot believe the news.
Weeks of staying hopeful turned to heartbreak over the weekend. Friends and family of William Drew Bull and Christopher Topher Owens were told by investigators they couldn't find proof the two men were still alive.
You just kind of start preparing yourself that that's the reality of the situation and it sucks.
On Friday, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office announced that the men's roommate, 35-year-old Charles Yu, was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice. Police documents reveal interviews and, quote, concerning interactions with Yu led them to make this a homicide investigation.
Why would somebody want to do something bad to him? Why would somebody want to hurt him because he was so kind and so I don't know, just a genuine person.
That's Jaylene Rodriguez, a childhood friend of Owens. She said he moved from their hometown in Colorado to Utah to start a new life.
There were some things that happened where he just kind of got dealt bad cards sometimes. But he was the most resilient person ever.
Bull's wife, Isabel, isn't ready for an interview, but shared a statement with Fox 13 News, writing, "I'm devastated and heartbroken. Me and his family can't believe this has happened and just want him home. He didn't deserve this. He was such a lovable person and always wanted to help people. We love and miss him so much." Anyone who knows anything is encouraged to call the sheriff's office.
Out of all the people for that to happen to, you never want it to happen to anybody, but it's just so sad because I feel he's been through so much and gotten over so much that at some point, you just wish that life would be a little more fair.
Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A motion to bring back the old Utah state flag got shut down today. The Political Action Committee, Are You Listening Yet?, submitted an application to present the Restoring the Utah State Flag initiative to Utah voters. They were hoping to restore the prior state flag, but did not gather enough signatures to qualify for the ballot. Today, a United States District Court judge denied a preliminary injunction that would allow additional time to gather signatures in support of their initiative. The group fell more than 50,000 signatures short of the number required to qualify.
Utah State Senator Todd Weiler will begin radiation and hormone treatment this week for relapsing prostate cancer. He made the announcement today, 3 years after undergoing surgery to remove his prostate. Weiler says his doctors at the Huntsman Cancer Institute discovered the need for more testing. I spoke to him this afternoon on a Zoom call.
I have a radiologist, Dr. Skylar Johnson. He requested a new DNA test of my cancer, and they compared that with new technology to about 100,000 other patients and determined that I was a very high risk for that cancer spreading. So on Thursday, in 3 days, I'm going to be starting the first of 38 radiation treatments.
Weiler says he is encouraged and even optimistic about being able to stop the cancer completely this time. And he encourages men over the age of 50 to have their PSA levels checked every year.
We wish him the best. There was quite a mess at the Salt Lake City International Airport this afternoon after there was a groundwater leak in the tunnel connecting Concourse A and B. This happened around 3:30 this afternoon. The area was cordoned off and passengers were directed to walk all around the water. You can see here in these pictures. It pointed toward a utility corridor that was open for them to get past the mess. So this is what they were walking through at the airport. A bus bridge was also used to transport passengers who needed special assistance. Travel was otherwise not impacted. The tunnel was opened back up shortly after 6 p.m. this evening after the leak was temporarily fixed. The airport is working to determine what caused the leak.
There is relief for people in Eagle Mountain whose homes have been taken over by tumbleweeds. You may recall these scenes from last week when a windstorm blew thousands of tumbleweeds into the neighborhoods. Today, Unified Fire Authority conducted controlled burns to get rid of some of the piles. They ended earlier than planned due to the wind kicking up. But UFA tells us they will continue the burns next week.
Yeah, they may have to wait until next week because the winds are going to continue to pick up throughout this one, Allison.
That's right. Second half of this week, we could have quite the downslope wind event on our hands, especially Tremont and down through Parley's Canyon. Here's what we're tracking for you weather headline wise. Rain and snow Tuesday into Wednesday, potentially some thunderstorms, thunder, snow, and graupel possible tomorrow afternoon, and then gusty canyon winds late in the week. We'll be getting into more of those details coming up in just a bit. We do have winter weather advisories recovery starting tomorrow for the mountains here across the state. We are mostly looking at 6 to 12 inches of snow for our mountains, with up to 18 inches possible for the Cottonwoods and the Tushars in southwest Utah heading into Tuesday and Wednesday. We're dry right now here across the state, but precipitation starts to pick up early tomorrow morning, and we'll see those chances throughout the day, and we could potentially have some of those thunderstorm activities really firing up tomorrow, second half of the day here across northern Utah. So early tomorrow morning, valley rain, mountain snowfall filling in by mid-morning, midday. Then tomorrow evening, we are going to be tracking that chance for some heavy areas of precipitation, thunderstorms, thunder snow, graupel, and then our canyon wind event will be starting Wednesday night into Thursday. More on that coming up in just a bit.
It's a day many of us will never forget. Where were you when the COVID-19 pandemic began?
Coming up, we take a look back at the 4-year anniversary of when the pandemic began, plus where things stand now.
Calm winds right now. That's going to change, though, in as little as 48 hours. Expecting one of the strongest downslope wind events that we've seen in years. I'm going to break down what that means and identify which areas will see the strongest winds.
The Big Sky Tournament is underway for Weber State. Is it still going? And could they win against Montana State? I'll have the highlights coming up.
4 years ago today, the world changed forever.
Infections of what was then called the coronavirus were starting to spread, and Utah was in the eye of the storm.
Rudy Gobert has tested positive for the coronavirus, so the teams right now are in their locker rooms. They haven't been allowed to leave. There's a lot of confusion here. The NBA has suspended its season as a result, and it's surreal.
I want to emphasize that our community is strong and resilient due to the size of our county, our diversified workforce and economy. We are well prepared to handle this situation.
We are hoping for the best, but we are preparing for the worst.
All those memories with the NBA suspension, as you heard there in that look back, Utah was at the center of what we now know in the history books as the COVID-19 pandemic. And despite elected officials trying to brace the public for what was coming, nothing could have prepared us for what happened during the lockdown and beyond.
Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller looks back at what happened 4 years ago today.
Good afternoon, everyone.
4 years ago, one announcement started a chain of events that changed the world.
This is the first pandemic caused by a coronavirus. This is not just a public health crisis. It's a crisis that will touch every sector. So every sector and every individual must be involved in the fight.
The World Health Organization officially calling the coronavirus a pandemic due to rising cases globally.
The committee will come to order.
Meanwhile, a House hearing on the virus that same day brought a stern warning from then Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Is the worst yet to come, Dr. Fauci?
Yes, it is. We will see more cases, and things will get worse than they are right now.
The reality of COVID hit one of Hollywood's most famous actors. Tom Hanks announced that he and his wife, actress Rita Wilson, contracted coronavirus while in Australia. And while the two major names in politics were the same 4 years ago, they had different titles. President Biden was candidate Biden, running against Senator Bernie Sanders for the Democratic nomination. And Donald Trump was in the Oval Office addressing the nation about the steps his administration was taking in hopes of keeping COVID at bay.
This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
But the most memorable images of the day may have been from the National Basketball Association. Fans of the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma Thunder waiting for a game that never came after Rudy Gobert of the Jazz tested positive. Then the Kings-Pelicans game was postponed because a referee for that game worked a Jazz game just days before. The entire NBA season came to a screeching halt before the night was over. Alex Miller, Scripps News.
Now let's put it into perspective what COVID-19 looked like here in Utah. This graph from the State Department of Health and Human Services shows the peaks and valleys of COVID-19 case counts from March of 2020 to November of last year. The number of COVID-19 cases we saw per day in Utah peaked in January of 2022, surpassing the 13,000 mark. Of course, it has largely tapered off, as you can see. Last May, the Biden administration allowed the public health emergency for COVID to end. Now, here are two more numbers we want to show you from the state's COVID dashboard. During that nearly 4-year period between March of 2020 and November of 2023, Utah saw 1.1 million COVID-19 cases. 5,455 Utahns died from the virus in that same time.
As we all prepare for a few scattered storms this week, the winds could become extremely impactful.
That's right. Utah's Weather Authority meteorologist Chris Nunley joins us live from 7200 West and I-80. And Chris, what can we expect this week?
Yeah, Bob, so the conditions are calm right now. You're probably wondering, why are we out here if the conditions are calm? Well, we want you to be prepared because in as little as 48 hours, it's going to be significantly different. We're going to see the first strong downslope wind event that we've seen really in the past few years. And some areas could see some very strong winds moving into Wednesday night, Thursday, continuing into Friday. So what we're tracking is a big area of low pressure. This is going to bring the active weather for your Tuesday and Wednesday. But as that low pressure starts to intensify and drop south over Arizona, we're going to be on the northern periphery of it. So what that's going to do is create some strong winds from east to west across our area higher up in the atmosphere. That's going to mix down, come crashing down the west side of the Wasatch Front. So the Wasatch Front communities from Brigham City all the way down to Provo have the potential to see winds gusting between 35 to 50 miles per hour, with an area I'm really focused on from North Salt Lake up toward Ogden. There's that possibility to see winds gusting between 55 to, in some cases, 70 miles per hour. That could cause some power outages. So you want to make sure now that you have that flashlight. Go ahead, secure the trampoline tomorrow, as well as that lawn furniture. And ahead of this event, the National Weather Service has already issued some wind alerts for the area. Allison, which areas are included in some of the wind alerts that the National Weather Service has issued?
So that area that we're really going to be keeping our eye on will be the northern Wasatch Front, but really from Tremont and down through Parley's Canyon are our primary concerns. But as we go ahead and start with that high wind watch that Chris was just mentioning, let me show you exactly what we're working with right here. So that is Ogden down through North Salt Lake, but as I mentioned, Parley's Canyon up through Tremont, and really the top area of concern that we're watching. But this is what's been issued so far from the National Weather Service Wednesday night through Friday morning. As of right now, we could see some wind gusts more than 60 miles per hour, and we are likely going to see our strongest winds heading into Thursday evening. So let me show you exactly what we're going to be dealing with here. This is Thursday throughout the day. We are going to see some very strong winds coming down those canyons, especially from Parley's up through Tremont, and we're going to see that wind in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour. So this is an easterly wind coming down into the valleys off of the mountains. As we look into Friday morning, things will still be pretty gusty here along the Wasatch Front. Now with this, I also want to mention we could see some gap winds even into Washington County, so the possibility of some strong winds for much of the state. 45 degrees currently in Salt Lake, 42 for Ogden, 44 degrees currently in Provo. And as we look at our temperatures over the next couple of hours and days, we're looking at increasing clouds tonight with a chance for some rain tomorrow morning because we will be mild enough. Rain showers, maybe some thunderstorms, thunder, snow, and graupel also possible heading into Tuesday afternoon. And then by Wednesday, we could see those snow levels dropping down to the valley floors. But for tomorrow, mainly 6,500 feet for Salt Lake into the overnight hours. As I mentioned, we're going to be mild enough that we're tracking chances for rain into tomorrow morning. Dry for much of the night. We'll start seeing those rain chances getting going tomorrow about 5, 6, 7, 8 a.m. So we'll have our winter weather advisories in the mountains starting at 8 a.m. and then we're going to have our chance for precipitation getting going throughout the day tomorrow. So the winter weather advisories will be starting actually at 6 a.m., not 8 a.m. And we're going to see those chances for precipitation increasing throughout the day. Widespread showers here in Salt Lake with temperatures cool all day in the mid-40s for pretty much the entire day here in Salt Lake. For St. George, you could make it into the low 60s tomorrow. If not, you could possibly be hanging out in the upper 50s for much of the afternoon. Tuesday at 4 p.m. we've got temps in the 40s for much of the state, even up towards the Cache Valley. And then tomorrow and then into the weekend, we could even see some heavy precipitation returning to southern Utah Thursday night into Friday. And then we could also see those temperatures back into the 70s before you know it by Sunday. For the Wasatch Front, 49 for a high tomorrow, low 40s on Wednesday. We'll have those high wind watches going into effect Wednesday night, gusty canyon winds Thursday into Friday. Once we get past this work week, the great gift will be a beautiful weekend. Temperatures mid to upper 50s, very close to average for this point of the year with sunshine. And then I'll let you know what we're thinking for the longer term forecast coming up in just a bit. We'll be right back.
In national news, students and teachers will be able to speak freely about sexual orientation and gender identity in Florida classrooms.
That's as long as the discussions aren't part of classroom instruction. This is under a settlement reached today between Florida education officials and civil rights attorneys who challenged what's known as the state's Don't Say Gay law. Opponents had said the law created confusion about whether teachers could identify themselves as LGBTQ+, or if they could have things like rainbow stickers or flags inside the classroom. The settlement clarifies that information. The Republican National Committee began laying off dozens of employees today. The move follows voter support for former President Donald Trump during the Super Tuesday primaries. Former President Trump handpicked a team to take over the Republican National Committee after that. They took the reins of the organization a few days ago.
Airbnb is banning indoor security cameras from rentals over privacy concerns. The platform had previously allowed cameras in common areas as long as they were clearly mentioned on the listing. That will no longer be the case. Airbnb is also establishing new rules around outdoor security cameras as part of that change. They must now be disclosed on listings.
It saves the lives of people in the grips of opioid addiction. Coming up, one county in Utah worries their supply of life-saving Narcan is in short supply.
Over 2 years after University of Utah football player was shot and killed, that defendant has pled guilty. Hear from Aaron's family about how these developments are making them feel.
It started as a work camp under FDR's New Deal, then turned into the site of a German prisoner of war camp. What locals say happened here, they wished hadn't. It's part of Utah's history.
The Jazz host the NBA's best Celtics tomorrow night. We'll hear from Walker Kessler on coming back from his injury and what he expects the Jazz to do the rest of the season.
Welcome back to Fox 13 News at 9. Utah's law enforcement supply of life-saving tool could be in jeopardy.
Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us why one county in Utah is worried about not being able to save those falling victim to the opioid epidemic.
Narcan's our best tool to save lives.
Iron County Emergency Manager George Colson says I-15 has become a major drug corridor running right through southern Utah.
We've had cases where we've had an officer's had to administer up to 6 doses to an individual in a severe overdose situation.
For years, Colson has received the life-saving medication Narcan from Southwest Utah Public Health, but he found out the funding for Narcan had run out in November.
No longer having an opioid program where we've kind of stepped out of the direct involvement with that.
David Heaton says individual law enforcement agencies and other organizations now need to order Narcan directly from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services.
For the new funding that came from the federal government, first of all, it was reduced by a significant amount. And then the state decided with their model of how they would distribute funding. It wouldn't automatically be divided up among the local public health departments.
Coulson says he was able to order Narcan from the DHHS, but was told via email the continuation of the funding for it is unsure.
The drug problem has not gone away or lessened, and I'm very concerned about funding in the future for Narcan, given the level of narcotics abuse.
He says Iron County's small sheriff and police departments can't afford to maintain the supply they need on their own. One pack of 2 nasal sprays costs anywhere from $40 to $70.
It'd be like fire department showing up at a house fire without hoses and without water. If an officer on the street doesn't have the ability to save that life, it's a very helpless feeling.
In a statement to Fox 13 News, DHHS wrote, quote, "There is no shortage of Narcan in Utah. Narcan remains readily available for first responders, local health departments, and other critical service providers in Utah. These partners can order Narcan through the Utah Department of Health and Human Services." Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
West Valley City Police have arrested a 22-year-old man on attempted kidnapping charges after he was in contact with a 13-year-old girl. On March 8th, Granite District Police detained Miguel Angel Vega Cedano for trying to pick up that 13-year-old. The girl's parents had called police after finding numerous social media messages between the girl and the suspect about meeting up after school. Granite Police found Cedano in a vehicle on school property. Officers also found he had a fraudulent Social Security card. Police say Cedano admitted to being in contact with another 13-year-old girl who he met up with a few times before. Police now trying to find that other girl. Cedano is being held without bail. Members of the International Olympic Committee spoke enthusiastically about an upcoming visit to Utah next month.
During a discussion today, the IOC said during their time in Salt Lake City, committee members will take a deeper dive into the proposal to host the 2034 Games and what that means to Utahns. They'll visit the planned site for the Olympic Village and Medals Plaza and venues for figure skating, hockey, and other sports.
Fabulous to see is that Salt Lake and Utah are so enthusiastic and so keen on hosting the games again. And I think that is, clearly a demonstration of what was a fabulously successful games, a great experience. And they want to recreate that for a new generation and give a new generation of young people and athletes that opportunity.
After their visit in April, the IOC's Future Host Commission will submit its report to the committee's executive board. The Manti, Utah Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is opening for public tours. Building systems and support spaces in the annex have been upgraded to preserve the sacred structure. The public open house for the historic temple in central Utah is from March 14th through April 5th, excluding Sundays. The temple rededication will be Sunday, April 21st. Free reservations can be scheduled online.
Are you feeling a little extra tired tonight? Maybe you're still yawning after springing our clocks forward an hour over the weekend. Utah Congresswoman Celeste Malloy wants to help keep you awake. She has reintroduced the Daylight Act, which would call on states to observe daylight savings time year-round. In a statement, Malloy cited similar bills passed in 18 states, including Utah, that would make daylight saving time the new standard. Before you say, hold on, what? That didn't happen. Current federal statutes prevent the law from going into effect. So we want to know, what do you think about daylight saving time springing forward? I know people don't mind so much falling back. It's the springing forward that gets you. Do you think we should stop changing our clocks? Just leave it alone. Let it remain the same.
Well, look at that result right there.
85% say, yeah, don't touch our time. Scan that QR code right now on your screen. Let us know what you think. This is our non-scientific poll, by the way. Results are in real time.
Coming up, the man accused of killing Utah football player Aaron Lowe has pleaded guilty. We'll hear from Lowe's brother.
And an important but often unknown piece of Utah history in Salina. The site of a German prisoner of war camp. What happened here and how locals are remembering it.
It has been more than 2 years since University of football star Aaron Lowe was shot and killed in Salt Lake City. Today, the shooter pleaded guilty.
Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi spoke to the victim's family and shares what the guilty plea means to them.
You took a part of me away. Like, we came in this world as three. Like, you broke a link to the chain like that. And that was that I'm close with all my brothers, but Aaron, we was like this.
Aaron Lowe was a loved brother, son, and University of Utah football player.
A happy soul, someone you could laugh with, talk with.
His death was an unexpected tragedy that shook the whole community. On Monday morning, the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office announced the defendant, Book Mewit Book, has pleaded guilty.
It kind of make it emotional, like, because it kind of feel like I'm living the night that it happened again. I'm remembering, okay, you know, my brother really gone. Like, this really real.
Aaron was killed and another person was injured in a shooting in September of 2021 outside a house party in Sugar House, just hours after the Utes defeated Washington State at Rice-Eccles Stadium. The woman he was with was hospitalized in critical condition with gunshot wounds to the neck and chest. She has never been identified. Book pleaded guilty to 1 count of first-degree felony murder and 1 count of first-degree felony attempted murder.
It's imperfect justice. It is a accountability, and it's a severe accountability, and it's something, which is appropriate. The defendant in this matter, if you look at the matrix, hopefully will spend a very long time in prison for this absolute senseless killing.
I spoke to Aaron Lowe, Aaron's brother.
Got one of his jackets right here as we speak, and another. That's another.
Who wants the punishment to be harsher.
In my mind, in my heart, you took my brother. Like, and my brother was an unarmed man, and you shot him. He was an unarmed man. He was no threat to you. You could have walked away. You was across the street and he was on the other side. You could have just walked away, turned your back, and went the other way. Instead, you chose to take his life that night.
Book's sentencing is scheduled for April 29th. Aaron's family says they hope this sends a message so that no other family has to deal with heartbreak or tragedy like this. At the University of Utah, I am Maithili Gubi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, coming up here across the state, we're tracking quite a bit over the next couple of days. A weak storm moving through today, and the timing of our next storm and when we could see some damaging winds here across the Wasatch Front.
Well, the season is here for the Utah Royals. We'll hear from the team as they get ready for their season opener on Saturday. And Dillon Jones and Weber State took on Montana State in the Big Sky Tournament. Could they beat the Bobcats? The highlights are on the way.
It really surprised me. I had no idea.
It's so nearby and no one talks about it.
Very little is known about these museums, even local people.
Preserving a piece of Utah history. Hello, I'm Fox 13 News anchor Amy Nay in Salina in central Utah, where one local volunteer has made it his mission to help educate other people about what he says is an important but often unknown piece of Utah history.
It was a program that we probably didn't want to have here, but we welcomed it here.
It was the Great Depression in a remote area of central Utah where the small town of Salina played host to a newly created federal program.
It went from 1933 to 1942.
84-year-old Rodney Rasmussen, a retired school teacher, walking us through the museum where he volunteers.
The CCC camps.
The buildings are what remains of a work camp created under FDR's New Deal in 1933, one of 35 civilian conservation corps sites in the state.
This is a portrait of him when he was 4 years old.
But in 1942, this location, right on the small town's main street, became the site of a German prisoner of war camp, one of 4 in Utah, and the only still teaching visitors about what happened here some 80 years ago.
Like shocking because nobody ever talks about it, you know?
These interviews are from students at Timpview High School in Provo and German exchange students who recently visited the museum.
I was also just so shocked and surprised. I was not aware of any of that.
Yeah, it was just really shocking to hear about it because it was super close to our hometown.
They don't teach it in school, and their parents are probably too young to remember it, most of them anyway, and so they don't hear about it. And some of the older people in town just don't want to talk about it.
The 43 tents with 250 Germans were here for 3 years. Many of the POWs would work in local farms and created fond relationships with the local residents.
Not what Mr. Bertucci did.
But on July 7th, 1945, one guard at the POW camp opened fire on the sleeping POWs, killing 9. Something Rodney, who lived down the road and just 6 years old at the time, remembers vividly.
It awakened us, and my father and I came out on our front porch, and we could hear the shooting and we could hear the cries of the prisoners. But I like to remember the good that happened here for these young men. A lot of times the bad things kind of overshadow it.
It was really cool to see. It's so historically significant, and you really got a sense for what it was probably like.
The last of its kind, and Rodney is the only one giving tours, but he says he is here and open and available. Just give him a call. He says 24/6, not on Sundays, but any other time you'd like to learn a little bit about the history, he'll come on over. In Salina, Amy Nay, Fox 13 News, Utah.
As expected, a weak storm impacted the state today, mostly brought us some light precipitation. A stronger one's going to impact us over the next couple of days. So what we're going to be tracking with that will be areas of valley rain and mountain snowfall for tomorrow. For this evening, though, just some increasing clouds in the forecast. And then tomorrow, our storm threat does include the chance for some thunderstorms to develop primarily in northwestern Utah. This does include Salt Lake County further north up into Idaho. So we could see some areas of thunder snow tomorrow. Some Graupel thunderstorm activity is certainly possible as well. As we're looking at our hour-by-hour forecast, Tuesday morning, temperatures in the mid-40s as you wake up. We are going to start seeing some heavy mountain snowfall tomorrow mid-morning. We'll see that increasing into central and southern Utah throughout the day tomorrow, with our temperatures really holding pretty steady in the mid-40s for much of the day. Chance of precipitation for Ogden tomorrow will be likely rain. By Tuesday night, rain to a chance for some snow to mix in. By Wednesday, we could see some flurries. For Provo, chance of precipitation pretty similar to that. Tomorrow, widespread rain. By Tuesday night, still widespread. By Wednesday, scattered areas of mainly lighter snow in the forecast, drier second half of the week. Now for St. George, you're going to have a little bit of a different chance of precipitation because by Thursday night into Friday, we could see some heavy precipitation filling in there. So what we're going to be tracking for us here across northern Utah will be a little different than what we're expecting across southern Utah. And there's also even the possibility Thursday night into Friday, maybe even some snow to make it down towards Lake Powell. So we've got a whole lot going on the next couple of days. As we look at our forecast snow totals now through Wednesday morning, as we zoom into northern Utah, for our valleys, we're mostly looking at 0 to 2 inches of snowfall, maybe 3 to 4 inches on the very high end for our valleys. For our mountains, mostly 6 to 12 inches of snow. We could see up to 18 inches of snow possible for the Tushars in southwest Utah and also for the Cottonwood Canyons. So really just going to have this storm impacting us, cooling us down, bringing us widespread precipitation tomorrow. And then second half of the week, when that low pressure is off to our south, and on the north end of it, we're going to get a downslope wind event as a possibility Wednesday night through Friday morning. For St. George, temperature 65 tomorrow, 60 on Wednesday, scattered showers Friday at 56 degrees. And for the Wasatch Front, we are close to 40 to 50 through Thursday, 50s this weekend, close to 60 next week as a beautiful weekend lies ahead.
Weber State played at the Big Sky Tournament tonight against Montana. Big Sky Conference is a one-league team league in the NCAA tournament, so you have to win to get in. Could Dylan Jones lead the Wildcats to a championship, or would this be his final game with Weber State? The Big Sky MVP knocks down the three. The Wildcats led it by 9 at the half. Then early in the second half, Jones gets it and scores 2 more of his 19 points. 3-point play put them up by 12. They led by as many as 13 points in the second half, and then the Bobcats went on a 13-0 run, capped by that three from Robert Ford III. Montana on top. The Bobcats kept attacking the rest of the way. They beat Weber State 91-82, knocking Weber State out of the tournament. The Jazz host the Celtics tomorrow night. While the Jazz have lost 10 of their last 12 games, the Celtics have the best record in the NBA. Walker Kessler returned to the lineup in the latest loss to the Nuggets after missing 4 games with a sprained foot.
Got a little foot deal, but worked hard to get back quickly, and getting back in the swing of things. Obviously a little rusty, but just came back right. Just trying to continue to improve on my game, improve my role, and just try and get some wins. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
The Jazz announced they signed forward Kenneth Lofton Jr. and waived Otto Porter Jr., who has retired. Lofton has played 2 seasons in the NBA, and he's played most recently in the NBA G League. It's also being reported that the Jazz will also sign forward Darius Bazley. He's averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds per game with Delaware in the NBA G League this season. It's finally game week for the Utah Royals. The expansion club will host Chicago on Saturday. It's a brand new roster with players already ready for their first game in front of their home fans.
The first game of the season is so tough because there is no scouting report. Both teams are basically starting from scratch again. Chicago had an entire rebuild. We are a brand new team through the expansion draft. We both are going to come out with our best, versions of ourselves and go toe to toe, and the best team will win on Saturday.
Just to step foot in that stadium and know that all the fans are going to be there and they're going to be super loud, it just gives me butterflies talking about it now. And I think you'll see in the group, everyone is just super excited and, ready to get it started.
Yeah, Royals season opener Saturday, 5:30. You can watch the game on Utah 16. Our Scripps sister station will broadcast Royals game throughout the NSL season. We'll be right back.
How about this? Ogden's historic 25th Street has been nominated for the 2024 USA Today's Best Reader's Choice Travel Award for Best Main Street. You can cast your vote by going to 10best.usatoday.com. Polls close April 8th, so get your votes in. Winners will then be announced on April 17th.
Some gorgeous pictures of Main Street there.
It's a cool little spot,
goodness.
Sure.
Yeah, lots of history there.
Kind of chic.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
QuickCast is up next.
I love that word, chic.
Chic.